So hello, besides Calgary. As you can see, my talk has a slightly different flavor than some of the ones that you've seen here today. I want to explore squirrels, jellyfish, and weather. Essentially, Mother Nature versus cybersecurity planning and risk management. Sometimes we get so heads down in the technology because it's fun. I keep missing you because of the speaker folder, I'm sorry. And so I would just really like to explore and have a little bit of fun and level set with you as well, because I would really love some audience participation. So if you're finding that what I'm talking about is in fact not in the realm of Mother Nature, challenge me on that, okay? And I'm gonna be asking questions, and I would love to have some feedback. So let's get into a little bit of who I am. I can't advance my slide. Oh, here we go, okay. So my name is TinaPetersen. I do have multiple degrees, but we'll just focus on the ones that probably you care about. I do have a degree in computer science and have a master's in project management. I am proudly a very nerdy parent of two very nerdy grown children. What does that mean? We cosplay, watch the Marvel movies. Yes, I know all the trivia. I have a very diverse working background, and you will see that as we go through the slides. Currently, I am practicing project manager and the coordinator at Moron Security, which is a lot of fun. If you follow us on LinkedIn, you'll see we have a lot of fun. And what really fascinates me is risk and all of the things that can be so easily missed and how explosive risk can become, and especially when we're talking about cybersecurity and how prevalent that human element has become, and how important it is to engage in those risk stories and learn from those lessons. So let's tell some stories together. But first of all, let me sort of give you a flavor of where we're going to travel today. So I want to talk to you about air conditioning. How does that relate to Mother Nature? Well, it's because we as human beings want to be comfortable in our environment, because Mother Nature aggressively wants to make us feel too warm sometimes. That is why we have air conditioning. And I'm sure you all are now going, oh yeah, I know the ones you're talking about, but you might not know the first one I'm going to talk about. Let's see. Also, beavers. Those little cuties, oh my goodness, they can cause so much trouble. We're also going to be talking about sharks. And maybe your mind's going, well, is she going with that one? And of course, jellyfish. Because man, those aggressive little squishy attackers, they're out there. We're going to be talking about storms, obviously, tsunamis, ice storms, and then plenums. And maybe some of you are going, like, what is a plenum? I will define that for you. Essentially, a plenum can be really itty-bitty, and it can be really large. It is any space that is used in a building to house your IT cables. And maybe a lot of you aren't aware how important it is to know where those cables are, what's around them, who has access to them, and how often, in fact, they are being given access. And then we're going to talk about swirls and the architects that design your buildings to make them comfortable for you and not comfortable for the maintenance people that work in those buildings, summer heat. And then we're going to talk about a horrifying list of why you really need to include Mother Nature in your plan. All right, so this one you guys know about. I'm pretty sure. A lot of you are like, oh, yeah, I don't know. But my goal in this talk is to take you on a brief storytelling journey, and it's just a little bit off the traditional path of cybersecurity. Hopefully, it will provide you with a more expanded view to approach the broader view of cybersecurity. I have a profound love and respect for Mother Nature. This beautiful lady has shown me, hopefully all of you, time and time again, that there is nothing we can build up that she can utterly destroy. Yes, no? Right? Yeah. But she, with all of her power, she is infinitely beautiful, and ultimately, she provides us the foundation of life and the jobs that we have, which is why we are here today. And that leads me to the purpose of this talk. Essentially, bring Mother Nature to the table at every risk planning meeting, at every customer discussion, and at every incident response plan, every risk management plan, every time we talk about anything to do with cybersecurity. So we'll get here in a second. But let me go back to the first time that I became aware of cybersecurity. This was in the 90s, and I can't mention who the actual person or the company was that had the intrusion. Those of you who were there at the time will remember. So in the 90s, there was a news story in which a major credit card company was hacked. Sadly, during this incident, several of the credit card holders had their data compromised. This meant that, and I'm not kidding, millions of credit card holders had their social security numbers, their birth dates, their names, their addresses, everything was released. Sometime later, this credit card company did admit that the intrusion was a member of their air conditioning in the building. So as a third-party vendor, there was no maliciousness on the part of the vendor. They had come in to do the maintenance, and somebody had simply followed them through the door, and that is what had happened. And it was the first time I became aware of cybersecurity and just how dangerous it was. This did cause quite an uproar at the time, since it was sort of the first time in big news that a third party had been hacked using a major trusted financial institution. So what did we learn? Apparently nothing, right? Because in the preceding 20-odd years, it has happened again. So who knows what this news story is reference to? Show of hands, please. Oh, I'm surprised. I thought there would be more. Okay. So what this is referencing is Target, the major retailer in the United States. They had a massive intrusion, and actually the Secret Service got involved because their payment processing system was compromised. And it was compromised through their HVAC company called Fazio. And in this situation, it was one of the employees of the air conditioning company had not been careful with their credentials. So again, it wasn't intentional, right? It was just human error because other people in that building wanted to be comfortable because of air conditioning, right? And so it's very similar intrusion, but again, massive amount of people were possibly affected because when Target is a massive retailer in the States, right? And what were they trying to do? They were trying to make their customers comfortable. That's what air conditioning does. It keeps Mother Nature outside so that customers are comfortable inside. And so obviously we all enjoy a comfortable, clean, climate-controlled space to occupy while we shop, work, commute. However, we need to be aware that our need to control our environment should not make it easy for bad actors to gain access. Please find safe and secure ways to interface with third-party vendors while keeping Mother Nature outside. And I know this is a little outside your realm because you're thinking, so now I have to call the plumber. I have to call the gentleman or the lady who's doing the lighting. Yes, you do, because those spaces are shared with your IT cables. Yeah, and there will be more on HVAC systems and where they're housed in a few minutes. So I know you're all waiting for this. Beavers. Yeah. So I am really privileged to work with some really amazing and talented people. A few months ago, one of my co-workers posted this news story on our internal chat. And then a second coworker, because we're a funny bunch for our work, immediately identified the beavers as an APT, Advanced Persistent Threat / Beaver. So we actually now have this on our threat matrix. How many of you have an APT / B on your threat matrix? Show of hands. Calder, hand up. Thank you. Sorry, my word was called. Okay. So wildlife is actually a very consistent cause of outage. This particular outage was this June 7th actually, in 2002, and it affected British Columbia. So what happened was many households were left technologically stranded. They had no internet, no landline, and no mobile service. And so for some people that was a nice day to go hiking. For people that have in-home medical systems, this can be dangerous. For people that have small children that are constantly getting injured, this can be very nerve-wracking, right? There are all kinds of reasons this is very important. This outage did last for 8 hours. One of our staff members lived in the area, and we needed her that day, we could get hold of her. The cause was found to be a busy beaver who had very industriously toppled a tree. Good for him. He got what he needed, but the tree landed on a power line and a fiber optic line that was extended above the ground. Now we're all asking, why was it above the ground? I don't know. It shouldn't be there, right? So again, we're asking the question, these fiber optic lines, they're critical for our infrastructure, what we need. And yet someone somewhere made the decision that this fiber optic was not going to be safely guarded in the ground. So now we know. So sadly, a fire did erupt. You're all concerned. The beaver escaped unscathed. That's and then shark bites. How many of you have heard about this news story? Show of hands. How many of you thought that it was a total scam when you first heard about it? Right? So yeah, it's real, and it's very, very prevalent. And what I didn't know until I looked into this is Google was having a heck of a time laying these lines because there are so many things on the bottom of the ocean floor that past humans have left there that are incredibly dangerous for the Google, their third-party vendors that are laying these lines. And then of course the shifting currents add all kinds of risk. So anyways, obviously this talk could not be complete without our prehistoric toothy friend, the shark. We'll just call him Bruce. Okay? So laying fiber optic cables across ocean floors is already fraught with hazards. Like I said, we're talking fish nets, fish hooks, earthquakes, anchors. I mean, massive ship anchors. Can you imagine you're a scuba diver down there laying fiber optic cable and you get cracked in the head by an anchor? I mean, that's a bad day, right? And suddenly your fiber optic line is now delayed weeks or days because your submarine is now not going to be coming down again that day. So now what happens is Google protects this critical infrastructure with a Kevlar-like protection to minimize successful shark bites. Plural, successful shark bites. There were many of them. So happily, this Kevlar apparently also protects sea life from harm. They didn't go into that. I have lots of questions I would like to have answered around that. But if an undersea cable is compromised, can you imagine how dense your incident response plan is, how dense your risk management plan is? And also, if this sort of cable is compromised, guess who you're involving now? International governments, right? I mean, this is not a small event. So you really need to think ahead and think what could be the possible things. So remember, Bruce is an issue if we are talking about possible international access to other companies, other vendors, other clients. Now we're going to get into some stat territory. So nuclear reactors, touchy and polarizing as a topic. Let's dive right in. They're critical systems and keeping them secure from intrusion. Jellyfish, my friend, aren't they cute? Mother Nature has a new arsenal in her war against all things nuclear, gelatinous jellyfish. And they are an aggressive warrior. These creatures may be brainless, spineless, and bloodless, but do not underestimate them. How often do you think that these bloodless little floating beauties have endangered nuclear reactors? Just throw out some guesses.
Every 5 minutes.
Sorry?
Every 5 minutes.
Oh, I love that. I love that enthusiasm. No, not quite that often. Another guess. So sorry, for those at home, she said every 5 minutes. Another guess? Once a year. That once a year is what this gentleman said. That's actually very, very close. So for several months, from 2011 to 2012, anti-nuclear jellyfish, because that's what we're calling them now, is anti-nuclear jellyfish, attacked a Japanese reactor at the Fukushima Daiichi plant. Imagine that, from 2011 to 2012. All of their alarms were going off because of anti-nuclear jellyfish. The Diablo Canyon facility in California, reactor number 2, by the way, the single largest reactor in the United States, had an anti-nuclear jellyfish attack in 2012. And then the world's largest nuclear reactor on the planet happens to be, I'm going to struggle with this word, Oskarshamn plant in southeast Sweden, has been continually attacked from 2005 to 2013. Anti-nuclear jellyfish. So these reactors rely on cold water intake pipes to keep them cool. Literally tons of delightfully squishy creatures must be cleared from intake pipes when the alarms sound. This is a process that can take days or weeks. Clearly, when this is happening, alarms and monitoring are critical to the safe operation of these facilities. Managing inflow and output are also critical systems. When anti-nuclear jellyfish attack and cause a reactor scramble, that's what it's called a reactor scramble when they get too hot, please ensure that panic and lack of planning do not cause a dangerous intrusion to be successful. So another similar example is we have, some of us deal with water treatment plants, we deal with hospitals. So when there's a major panic, similar to a reactor scramble, a lot of the other human element things that we have in place to keep our systems safe, they might be compromised. When everybody is trying to keep a reactor from blowing up, or everybody is trying to keep a hospital from shutting down, guess what? Somebody wanders in with that one USB and that one computer that was not on any network, was not compromised in any way. In goes that USB. Hands up, who thinks that's really dangerous?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So this is what threat actors look for, right? They look for news stories like this. They look for these sorts of alarms to be happening. And in the case of our water treatment plants, in the case of all of these things that we as humans have designed to make our world more comfortable, to keep Mother Nature out, and they're dangerous intrinsically, these sorts of things, we need to be careful. Oh, 1 second, they go too far. 1 second, sir. Okay, storms. So extreme weather causes havoc to external infrastructure, a broad spectrum, including high humidity, all the way down to ice storms. Can bring down power lines, other equipment, or trees onto that critical infrastructure. These events can take hours or weeks for crews to repair due to the very nature of the environment, especially a storm, right, that caused the outage in the first place. So the article I have here is from the University of Southern California. They're doing some fantastic work directly related to tsunamis, shakes, and quakes, and cyber attacks. Directly related. This is so exciting for our industry. If we can dip a toe back into the nuclear power station just for a moment. When Mother Nature throws a pool party, she's literally going to throw the pool at you. That's what a tsunami is. This was the case for the Japanese Fukushima Daiichi plant in 2011, which suffered another catastrophic failure where a tsunami reached the facility's walls. The equipment was flooded, causing shutdown and damage. As will be discussed later, water can be troublesome and damaging, but seawater is even more so because of its high salt content and the sheer volume. As all of us, cybersecurity professionals, you would likely be faced, if we had like a huge tsunami come into one of our facilities, you'd be faced with full replacement of hardware, reinstallation of the hardware, reinstallation of all of your software, all of the testing, and then a very daunting series of tasks, including how many third-party vendors. Just take a moment and think about how many third-party vendors right now would be involved because your facility was flooded. It gives me tummy aches, right? And how many possible bad actors could be in there, or people that don't have their credentials properly locked down. You know, password, 123 exclamation point, fantastic, right? A tsunami anywhere on land will cause catastrophic damage to your systems. Whether you manage cybersecurity for a resort hotel chain or a payment processor for a small subset of customers, do not drop your guard when Mother Nature throws the pool at you. You do need to be careful. Oh, sorry. The team's trying to get hold of me. So, ice storms, dangerous, relentless, and cold. How many of you here are native to Canada or native to Calgary, please? Canada, yeah. And so this lady here said, Canada. Yeah. There's been a life lived in the Canadian environment. In January of 1998, 3 different ice storms struck our neighbors to the east. Tragically, 35 people lost their lives, over 1,000 were injured. Trees were toppled, massive hydro pylons, that is, a massive hydro pylon, they were bent like licorice. 600,000 people were left homeless. The unique challenge of a natural disaster on this scale is that you, the cybersecurity professional, is very likely going to be very personally affected. You are not going to be left unscathed by it. So in the face of your very own personal loss and issues, you must persevere to assist in your job, to assist in the critical healthcare systems, utility delivery, and payment processing. This is where your in-depth, clearly written, step-by-step recovery plan, risk management plan is essential. When you are at your worst, when your real life is falling apart because Mother Nature has done this to you, you need the best plans you have ever written that you created months ago to be there for you and for your team in your time of need. Sorry, my team really wants to get a hold of me. Okay. Now we're going to get into plenums. So remember I told you I have a diverse background. One of the things I have worked in is in construction. So this is, my talk will also, if you are interested, I can provide you with all the links to everything I've talked about and so many more. So what a plenum is let's define it. It is essentially any space inside any building. We have a plenum in this building. You have small plenums inside of your vehicles. You have plenums in your houses. It is essentially any area inside a building that is out of sight, but incredibly important to the overall infrastructure of that building. The plenum space houses all of the HVAC. So HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, air conditioning. I'm doing for time. And so it also includes your plumbing, your cables, your wires, your phones, your data systems, your IT network, and any other system you can think of. And we have these in older and we have them in modern buildings. This shared space can be large or it can be small. In the photo, you'll see this is quite a large space. So this is modeling a large one. In a commercial building, a plenum can be large enough for several people to stand in. So if we think back to like our love of movies, who has seen Die Hard? Right? So when he's crawling through that space in the ceiling. Who has seen Mission Impossible? Guess what that is? Everybody? Exactly, yes. So when Hollywood shows them, they're incredibly clear of all of the clutter that you would normally find in a plenum. All of those pipes, wires, all of the on-off switches, all of the connections, all of that. They're sort of been sanitized for the camera. They're not like that in real life. Okay? So, history of dangers of the shared space in the plenum. In February of 1975, a fire occurred in New York City in the North Tower of the World Trade Center. I'm not going to explore that fire too much, only to say that it was caused by the exposed polyethylene insulation around the panel blocks that were highly combustible. Unfortunately, this particular fire burned so hot that all surrounding materials were destroyed. Fires or floods in plenums go unobserved for long periods of time. This is partially due to the fact that plenums, by their very nature, are designed for airflow, and they're out of sight. So any sort of malfunction or emergency is so often unobserved until it is far too late. Because the plenum extends the entire width and the height of any building, it must go the entire width and height. Think about it, right? Because it has all of your plumbing, it has all of your plumbing, it has all of your data wires. It has to. It goes everywhere. And it's behind the walls. It's under the floor. It's in the ceiling. It's everywhere. This is obviously a concern. The 1975 fire immediately led to a new code and testing methods being implemented for plenum areas. In more modern structures, we have a fragile infrastructure, such as data cables. We need to be very careful to protect them from heating lines and also hyperextension, which is being pulled too tight, and stress, which means being bent during installation and work or maintenance done inside the plenum. So this is actually a very real concern, because if you've never been inside of a plenum, I have, you are working like this and you're trying to like get your torch lit so that you can do, you can change the plumbing out. If you have data cable there that hasn't been moved, it's catching fire. If the plumber yanks it out of the way and it's fiber optic, what's gonna happen? Pardon?
It's a bad day.
It's a bad day. That's a great answer. Yeah. Okay. Sorry? No internet. And so how long do you think it'll find you to find where it broke? Because where are you going to look first?
Source.
Well, how do you know where the source is? Right? So the question was the source. Yeah. So if you're not aware that all of these spaces could be affected, if the landlord of the building or the owner of the building hasn't told you, hey, Tina, I had like work done in the plenum today, you're not going to know, right? And so it's not that these people that are working in the plenum, they're far from lazy, they're far from unintelligent, they're just trying to get their job done, right? So clearly we need to guard plenum access so that bad actors can't access our networks directly via building cables. So now that I've given you that hint, tell me how a bad actor could access your network directly. Anyone? Yes?
Tap.
Yes. You said a tap, exactly. So somebody can be a plumber, walks in there with a splicer and just taps right into your network. Are you gonna know?
You just crawl right up there, Mission Impossible style with a little torch.
Yeah, exactly. So
There goes your data center.
they can crawl right up their Mission Impossible style and get in there. You would not believe how unsecure the plenum space in any building is. Seriously, try it. Just try it. Yeah. Tell them you're the plumber, they'll get in. So in summary, I encourage you all to ask to check the plenum spaces. And alternatively, ask your client for photos of their main plenum area, because there are the main areas for this stuff, and smaller access sites, often in ceilings or walls. You'll see the access panels. Make sure they're locked off. Often it's a ring. You lift the ring, you pull it in. Guess what? Plenum access. Ask third parties, such as the HVAC technician, such as the government inspector even, to not yank your critical wires out of the way. They likely just don't know. And finally, search that plumber for cable splicers. Okay. Arsonists, don't you love them? Especially when they're cute and fuzzy. So here we see the Huffington Post has brilliantly labeled squirrels as arsonist squirrels. That's my new favorite term for them. We're gonna go with it. So squirrels are actually a major source of home fires. Why am I bringing this up? Post-COVID world, so many of us are now working from home. So many of our clients are working from home. And so these squirrels are a huge issue. Actually, here in Calgary, we had 3 fires last year caused by squirrels. On average, any major city will have 500 fires a year caused by squirrels. So an attic is an example of a plenum in your home. Whether it's squirrels nesting inside your chimney, combusting materials in the chimney, in the flue, or more commonly squirrels chewing on the wires in the attic, leading to serious attic fires, these little critters cause substantial damage. This affects our cybersecurity world when so many now work from home, right? Please address this with your staff and coworkers. Develop a home emergency plan should the unthinkable happen and they need to evacuate their homes. How many of you have a home emergency plan for your workers? Thank you, Father. I was about to yell at you. So staff need to make sure that their computers lock within a minute of no user interaction. Staff need to make sure that there are no voluminous notes left behind. Alternatively, staff can use something like a rocket book, which can be erased during a fire. What's a rocket book? I'm so happy. So there are many of these. I'm not particularly advocating for this one. This is a rocket book, okay? How this works is it's like a regular piece of paper. You draw on it with a friction pen, put it anywhere, okay? They draw like regular, and they have an eraser on the end. Or if you heat them up, like if you leave them in your car, don't leave them in your car. If you want to keep the notes, they'll erase. You can microwave them, or they wash away. But what's brilliant about these is you take your notes, and there's a free app on your cell phone, and you take a picture, and it's shot up into your secure cloud space, and you wipe it off. So I did get this lovely swag, oh, I lost it now, from Besides, oh here it is, Besides Calgary, which is paper. And I know we all love paper. You can't hack paper, it's so awesome. However, I'm sure many of you know that staff need to make sure that there are no voluminous notes left. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot. I have another example for you. This is actually from Staples, and this is called an M-ARC. Okay, so it's similar. You can write on it. Same kind of pen, friction pen. These you erase with the eraser, or you put them in your microwave. So much fun. 30 seconds, paper erases like magic. It's fantastic. So there are lots of options out there to not keep notes lying around. And why am I saying this? Because if there's an emergency and your staff are working from home and they have to scramble, or they have children at home, you don't want notes left around for them to get at. Because you all write your passwords down, right? Cringe. Okay. So what's nice about both of these, because these pens here are water-based, in the heat of, they also are heat sensitive. In the heat of a fire, gosh forbid, or when the fire department extinguishes with the water, they're going to be erased by their very nature. So anything that you have that is sensitive is gone. Also, you're now training your staff to only keep everything in one book, right? You're not having them keep pages and pages of stuff on their desk. Because I've watched cybersecurity seminars where they're encouraging staff to have like small safes or small file cabinets at home and store all your paperwork there. Firefighters have axes, and if there's paper in there, they're going to try to get to it, right? And if there's really critical information on that paper for your client and for yourself, it's not compromised. So I would really encourage you to have a plan with your staff where to handle these arsonist squirrels, There's less paper in your homes, and we're saving the environment. Rather than it's just gonna love us, it's just gonna throw less pools at us. Okay? Less paper, and I say the Rocketbook, you shoot it right up into secure cloud. It's brilliant. So I strongly advocate materials like that. There's so many of them. Use which one you like, which one you advocate for. And like I say, they're erased by the very emergency that caused them. So as soon as your arsonist here, causes a fire, and then also what's nice is like, I've just got one notebook, right? I'm leaving the house with this and my laptop. That's it. I'm not trying to drag my vault out of the house. So yeah. So in summary, check the attic for those darn squirrels and invest in low-tech notebook solutions like the Rocketbook. I mean, there are ones where you can they're like $400 and you write on them and they're really fancy and they're all technical. Yeah, those are there too. But these are like $20. So it depends on what you're wanting to spend. There's lots of them. Just embrace something that's not paper that's taller than your topic. All right, those darn architects. We love to hate them, don't we? All right, so for those of you who are unaware, this is actually a fantastic website from the government of the US. It's the whole building design guide. They actually have volumes on how to design buildings safely for cybersecurity. Again, because we need to protect our plenum spaces, and now you all know what plenums are. I'm so excited. And we need to keep our buildings safe for us as well, because as humans, we want to be comfortable. We like to be hot when we're cold, we like to be cold when we're hot, right? And also we want to keep our bad actors out. We want to keep them secure from people just wandering in and inserting that USB into our critical systems. So as you can see, there are several agencies that actually follow these guidelines. That includes NASA, Homeland Security, the Secret Service. They're on board. So I would highly encourage you guys to go to this website and double check. So a few years ago, my then employer was called in to consult on a poorly placed plenum. As a project manager, I've worked in many industries. In this case, snow, ice, and water were pooling around the central heating, airflow, plumbing, and IT systems in the plenum's brand new building, in the client's brand new building. So the brand new building, they had installed 1.5-foot tall concrete blocks in their plenum space, and on top of that, they had built their critical systems. It was so exciting. It was so bad. Let me provide some background. This client had been adversely affected by Calgary's floods in 2013, because traditionally, before that sort of thing happened, where did most plenums exist? Most of the major infrastructure. Yes, basements. That has changed. We are now on the top floor. So therefore, this particular client of mine had invested significant time and money to move their operations way far out of downtown, like a high hill. However, to their great frustration to the client, they're now experiencing potential catastrophic loss again. I'm gonna go over time, I'm sorry guys. Are you all good with that? Even though their central processing room had been located several stories above the ground of the new facility. And when I say their plenum was several stories, I'm talking concrete wall, 12 stories up. Our little arsonist squirrel is not gonna crawl 12 stories up the sheer cement wall. And also our bad actors, like our Spider-Man, well, he's not gonna get up there, right? So they thought they were safe. However, this particular plenum, just so you know, was the first stage was large enough to stand in. 8 of us could fit in there. It was a giant steel box. It was awesome. It had big louvers on this side to allow airflow, because that's what plenums do. And then this side was a stainless steel wall. And then there's a little tiny drain for little small amounts of condensation to get out. However, the architect and the engineering firms who designed and oriented this new building, they had failed to account for the snowfall and wind patterns in southern Alberta. Yeah. So large amounts of snow, and I mean large amounts of snow, were regularly entering the first stage of this plenum. overcoming 1.5 feet of concrete rise inside the plenum space, 12 stories up. Yeah. So all of their sensitive equipment is being compromised. So let's look at what they did. Their plenum can be moved. Their building can be moved. Their giant exterior louver could be moved. This was a huge additional expense for them. So therefore, we installed a complex series of drains, heats, moisture sensors, overall monitoring, and basically this room is constantly being monitored. It has we have so many drains running everywhere. It looks like flu. It's just like, whoa. And then we have regular health checks on the AT systems are required to guard against potential loss, because as you know, most computers like that sweet spot of temperature, and they don't like to be overly moist, right? They want to dry. Yeah. So imagine providing my point with an incident response plan and guide without being aware of these significant issues ongoing in their plenum. If you were unaware that we had these additional systems in place to guard against that. All right, now I'm going to talk briefly to the heart of all of you, because you all have your own natures, okay? Cybersecurity right now is getting to be, is getting to be, for a lot of us, it's getting to be a lot, right? The attacks keep coming, clients are becoming more aware, and there's just a lot of fatigue built in, either fatigue from constant overwork and or fatigue because you're working from home and you have no air conditioning at home and you're just, I need to be in an air conditioned environment, or just fatigue of the constant alerts going off. I would really encourage you to listen to your body and to listen to what your mind is telling you. Find that work-life balance, okay? You will not be your best cybersecurity professional unless you respond and listen to your own inner nature. Okay? Talk to your HR department. Maybe you could take a brief break with your sales and marketing team and help teach them and guide them on what your actual core execution teams do, and help them scope those projects, help them do some of the marketing materials. Take a week or two break to talk to them. There's also other companies here that maybe have, just take care of yourselves, okay? Because fatigue and burnout are real, and the cybersecurity industry is starving for staff. We need each and every one of you. That's what I'm saying. And also, on the other end of that, is don't get too frustrated at your users. Okay? How many of you sometimes want to take your users and have a very, very interesting talk with them? Okay, your users are experiencing fatigue as well, because they are constantly getting the message. Check this, don't open this, check that, don't do that, oh, don't, they get tired and they feel hopeless and they have their regular job to do as well, right? And they don't want their computer locking every time Fifi has to go answer nature's call. They want that computer to stay unlocked. If they've got teenagers in the home, some of their teenagers might not be making great choices around their open computer, right? So just remember that your average end user is also overworked, possibly working from home, possibly have kids coming at them all the time, dogs. They have real life stuff too. So just do try to be aware that they have their own natures to respond to. So other things that Mother Nature throws at us. Oh, okay. So I'm at time, but I have 5 more minutes. Can I continue? And you guys can. I only got 1 nod. Okay, 2. Okay, excellent. Yes, I'm feeling the love. Thank you. All right, arachnophobia. Did you know that the biggest recall in Toyota's history was due to spiders? So, and this is becoming, why do I think that you guys as cybersecurity professionals care? Because more and more of our cars are entirely driven by data systems. This particular recall, there's actually 3 of them that happened, boom, boom, boom. But what's happening was there is a pipe that drips down from your air conditioning system. Yes, air conditioning again, I know, right? There's a theme here. Was dripping down. And those spiders were looking up at the pipe and going, that looks good. So they would climb up in there and they would build a nest. Now that condensation water has nowhere to go. And it would now condensate on the airbag. Guess what happened? Boom! In the user's face driving the car. So we need to be aware, because I've worked in automotive as well, that as more and more of our systems in our vehicles become controlled by computers, we need to watch for condensation. We need to watch for bugs that are like, ooh, this is warm. Those arsonist squirrels and spiders, right? They are our enemies in this situation. We need to keep our users safe. Lightning and wildfires, more and more, like California had the biggest wildfires ever 2 years ago. They had no water, their cattle were starving. But more importantly, I'm not sorry, that was so wrong, oh my gosh. The cattle were important, but the wildfires were seriously affecting their infrastructure, right? If they have no water, how are they cooling all of their plants? How are they keeping water safe for people, right? There's a bigger thing. And then boys and their toys. I'm sorry, you guys, but I have raised a male child. And if you do not think that boys are a force of nature, we need to have a chat. So in this particular example, the food delivery drone in Australia landed on some power lines. Don't know how that happened. It caught fire, fell off, no harm, no foul, except for that thousands of people had no power, including those businesses, right? So then as soon as that gets out on social media, because it gets out on social media much faster than it does on the news outlets, your bad actors are in there with their USB sticks and trying to hack into the systems that are slowly coming up, because all of your security software doesn't come up all at once, does it? And so then there are so many more reasons. Let's go back in time, shall we? BCE 1600, volcano, Santorini, part of an island, poof, erupted, crops gone. AD 79, thank you so much, sir. Volcano, Pompeii, an entire city, 4 to 6 meters of volcanic ash. Here in Alberta, April 1903, Frank slide, an entire city gone. And then back to the cars. In 2004, Chrysler, Voyager, their radios were catching fire due to condensation inside the vehicles, because when you talk, you condensate. Yeah, that was the thing. And then obviously here in Calgary, the flooding in June 2013. Mother Nature threw the pool at us again. Yeah. And then again, the spiders, the lightning. Then also what's coming up, and this for me is personally terrifying. Did you know that depending on who you talk to, the San Andreas Fault is anywhere from 80 to 200 years overdue from having a massive shift? That is along the western seaboard, 800 miles long, and it is going to extend up into British Columbia, which that's our family, right? So we need to be looking at that. So my takeaway for you is to recognize that Mother Nature wants to come indoors in the most creative of ways. So please carefully consider the external non-technical threats. Please look after yourselves as well. And incorporate all possibilities into your critical recovery and risk management plans. In summary, when Mother Nature overturns our human game table, we simply must come to the rescue of our clients, our partners, and the critical business systems. Proper threat modeling and with an incident response plan is not complete without considering Mother Nature, those arsonist squirrels, and those darn jellyfish. So I also want to say as well, thank you to Besides Calgary, our volunteers, our sponsors. Thank you to all of you for attending and coming to my talk. Thank you so much to the cybersecurity community as a whole. I have grown to love all of you immensely. You are an amazing group of people because you keep the planet safe. I don't think a lot of people recognize that. I do, thank you. And those of us at Mariah, we are also starving for people. Come join our collective. So, thank you. Are there any questions in the 5 minutes I have left? Yes.
I'm just curious, do you, in Canada, are we at an increased risk of just general wildlife related mishaps on like security and critical infrastructure? Like, I mean, we have moose, we have squirrels, we have all sorts of things.
So the question is, in Canada, are we more at risk for wildlife intruding on our stuff? And the answer is yes, because we have more wildlife than people. Yes. Any other questions? Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks. A female in purpose. Okay, I was like, Oh,
Thank you so much.
well, thank you for
Absolutely.
attending.
Yeah.
Thank you, bless. Thanks.